Like some of the biggest stories that made the headlines recently. I am Mark Otabo. And of course, this week, the army vows never to succumb to calls to disrupt democracy. Also, President Tinubu appoints new NIA, DSS Directors General. And later on the show, NLC President Joe Ajaero accepts police invitation over alleged racism and terrorism financing. Details in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. This week, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Lagbaja, assured Nigerians that the Army will not succumb to calls by some powerful interest blocs to disrupt democratic governance in the country. He said that the Nigerian Army was still struggling to restore its integrity after many years of military rule and is not ready to lose its prestige built in the past 25 years of staying out of power. The Chief of Army Staff, who spoke against the backdrop of calls by some persons for military intervention during the August 1st to 10th #EndBadGovernance protest, pledged to ensure that the Army works for a united and secure country. He said that apart from combating physical insecurity such as terrorism, banditry, crude oil theft, and others, the Nigerian Army was poised to address the challenge of the food crisis, which could trigger physical security issues. Now, joining me via Zoom for more insight on this is Dennis Amatri is a retired assistant director and, of course, Department of State Services, DSS. And, of course, I have here with me Olufemi Lawson, Executive Director, Center for Public Accountability. Good to have you on the show. Now, Olufemi Lawson, very quickly, now the hierarchy of the Army would not succumb to voices asking them to disrupt the democracy, right? Now, should we conclude that those behind this clamor of this magnitude do not have an understanding of the situation?
Well, while we can excuse some of those people making this call, especially those young folks, who participated in the August protest, we cannot also but agree that some of these calls are triggered by some politically exposed Nigerians who have become so uncomfortable with the current administration in the country solely because of their political interest. So a lot of times we may not just see this as a call by people who are naive, who are ignorant, and who do not actually know the history of how we are where we are today. And that is why it cannot just be ignored totally. And that is why the position of the Army Chief is timely, is important, and should be commended, because a lot of these selfish politicians always feel the moment they are not in position, then nobody else should be there. And don't be surprised that they are responsible for some of these calls, using an army of uninformed young people, and sometimes even people in their class, in their political class. So it's something that we should not just take as mere, noise by protesters, especially during that period, but something that must be taken seriously as people who actually know the route we traveled before we got to where we are today.
Now, as a matter of fact, you just highlighted quite a number of insights into what we are discussing right now, and I just want to put this to you now. The dark days of the military would never be forgotten, and we can't begin to count. We might run out of count with people who we lost due to the fact that they wanted to secure democracy for us and all of that. Now, what approach should a national orientation agency adopt to actually educate Nigerians, for them to really understand what it means to be under a military rule?
Well, the National Orientation Agency has a duty to continually enlighten the citizens, just like some other states are doing. In Ondo State today, there's a Bureau for Public Enlightenment created by the governor, and some other states are also taking cue. But I think as Nigerians, as media, as civil society, and as political operatives, in the case of the politicians, we must let Nigerians know what the military junta in Nigeria represented in those days. It was not, a regime that anybody would wish, reoccur in this country today. So we must, and that is why it is very important. One of the tasks I think we should begin to place before the administration of President Bola Tinubu is the return of history to our classes. We need to let this young generation of Nigerians understand what it was in the days of the military junta. Otherwise, people think military intervention in politics is just about having people in khaki in government house, in government office. It was more than that.
All right. Well, I've established contact with Dennis Amatri, a retired assistant director, Department of State Services. Dennis, good to have you on the show this evening.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Now, protests are obviously a way to get our voices heard. Now, we saw what transpired the last time. The whole protest almost escalated into something else. Now, suggest to us, what are other ways that people can present their issues and obviously have those issues resolved? Aside from going through protests, do you think there's any other way where voices can be heard? Because at the end of the day, what happened the last time almost went bizarre. And thank God things went the way it went. So what's your suggestion moving forward?
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, we cannot discount protest in a democracy.
Yeah.
Protest is part of democracy. The only problem we had in Nigeria was that we're not able to manage it. Because if we managed it, it's normal. People protest. It's part of democracy. You see, democracy is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And we elect people to be our representatives. Now, when the representatives are not doing very well, I think protest is a way of telling them that, hey, brother or sister, that thing you are doing is not correct. You know, it's allowed. In fact, in some countries, the government engineers protest so that they can hear what the people are saying. It's like flying a kite, you know, and it's a way of people voicing their opinion, and they'll say, oh, see, the opinion polls are saying that we should not do this, so let's forget it, you know. Or it looks like everybody supports this idea, let's go ahead with it. So protests cannot be discounted.
All right.
But what we have in Nigeria is to manage it, and the police should have done a better job.
All right. Now, Dennis, before we go off from this topic quickly, do you think the military would always be a threat to our democracy, no matter how we try to shake it off?
Africa, the military is always a threat to democracy, because we have gone through military rule for more than 13 years. And I can tell you, some people will be calling for military to come, we want military regime. It's because of what is happening around our house. You know, what's happening in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, you know, and that is basically because of bad governance. You know, when the government is not doing very well and the people are not having the benefits of democracy, they call for it. But the funny part of it is that they don't know, you know, the evils of a military rule, you know, because let me tell you, some of the people, when we were in military rule, most of the people that are agitating for it now have not been born. You know, most of them will be under 30 right now. They're under 30. And that time, when military rule was going, we left military rule in 1999. And that means 25 years ago. So think of it. They don't know what military rules look like. So I think it's both sides. Let us try and work towards it so that the public will understand what is going on. And of course, the military will try and submit themselves to civil rule.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Dennis. Well, we'll go on a quick break now. When we return, Newsweek continues in a moment. Stay with us.